클릭해주셔서 감사합니다.
Hello everyone, I'm Laiseo JK De. Today we are continuing our series on South Korea's economic development. In our previous videos, we explored how South Korea transformed itself from a poor, war-torn country into a major industrial economy. We discussed export-led growth, we discussed heavy industrialization, and we discussed the developmental state. But today we are gonna focus on a different question. How did Korean companies conquer the world? How did companies from a relatively small country become global leaders in semiconductors, smartphones, automobiles, shipbuilding, batteries, displays, and consumer electronics? How did names like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK, and others become recognized across the globe? And what challenges do they face today in an increasingly competitive world? Let's find out. To understand the rise of Korean companies, we first need to understand the concept of the chaebol. The word chaebol refers to large family-controlled business groups that dominate much of the South Korean economy. Examples include Samsung, Hyundai, LG, SK, Lotte, Hanwha, and others. Unlike many Western corporations, chaebol often consist of dozens of or even hundreds of affiliated companies operating across multiple industries. A chaebol might own businesses involved in electronics, construction, finance, chemicals, logistics, insurance, retail, and manufacturing simultaneously. The origins of the chaebol system can be tracked back to the 1960s and 1970s. At that time, South Korea's government wanted to accelerate industrialization. Rather than spreading resources among thousands of small companies, the government concentrated support on a limited number of firms that demonstrated the ability to compete internationally. These firms received loans, access to foreign currency, government contracts, and support for expansion. In return, they were expected to achieve ambitious export targets. This arrangement created powerful incentives. If a company succeeded internationally, it gained more support. If it failed, it risked losing access to critical resources. The result was intense competition among Korean firms. Over time, several companies emerged as national champions. Among them, none became more famous than Samsung. Today, Samsung is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. However, Samsung did not begin as a technology company. When it was founded in 1938 by Lee Byung-chul, Samsung was primarily a trading company. It dealt with products such as dried fish, vegetables, and groceries. Few people could have imagined that this modest business would eventually become one of the world's largest technology corporations. Samsung's transformation occurred gradually. The company entered manufacturing, then electronics, then semiconductors. Each step involved enormous investment and risk. One of Samsung's most important strategic decisions was its commitment to semiconductors. A semiconductor is a material used to manufacture computer chips. Modern life depends on semiconductors. Smartphones, computers, servers, automobiles, artificial intelligence systems, and countless electronic devices all require chips. The semiconductor industry is extremely difficult to enter. It requires advanced engineering, it requires massive investment, and it requires years of research and development. Despite these challenges, Samsung aggressively expanded into the sector. The company's investments eventually paid off. Today, Samsung is one of the world's largest semiconductor producers. Its memory chips are used throughout the global economy. In many ways, semiconductors became the foundation of Korea's technological rise. Another major Korean company is SK. SK Group operates in numerous industries, including telecommunications, energy, chemicals, and semiconductors. Each semiconductor division has become particularly important. As demand for artificial intelligence continues to grow, advanced memory chips have become increasingly valuable. This has strengthened Korea's position within the global technology supply chain. Why are semiconductors so important? Because they sit at the center of modern economic activity. Countries that possess advanced semiconductor capabilities enjoy significant strategic advantages. Semiconductors influence economic growth, national security, technological innovation, and global competitiveness. For South Korea, leadership in semiconductors has become one of the country's greatest economic strengths. But chips are only one part of the story. South Korea also became a global leader in automobiles. When Korean carmakers first entered international markets, they faced skepticism. Many consumers associated automotive quality with Germany, Japan, or the United States. Korean vehicles were often viewed as inexpensive alternatives rather than premium products. However, Korean manufacturers continuously improved. They invested heavily in engineering. They improved quality control. They expanded research and development. They studied international competitors. And they listened carefully to customer feedback. Over time, perceptions changed. Hyundai and Kia became increasingly competitive. Their products improved dramatically in reliability, safety, design, and technology. Today, Korean vehicles compete directly against many of the world's leading automotive brands. In some markets, they outperform traditional competitors. The automobile industry demonstrates an important lesson. Global success rarely happens overnight. It often requires decades of incremental improvement. Each generation of products becomes slightly better. Eventually, small improvements accumulate into major competitive advantages. South Korea's shipbuilding industry tells a similar story. During the early 1970s, few people believed Korea could become a major shipbuilding nation. Building large commercial vessels requires intensive engineering expertise. It requires massive facilities, and it requires sophisticated industrial supply chains. Nevertheless, Korean companies entered the industry aggressively. Over time, Korean shipbuilders developed world-class capabilities. They built oil tankers, container ships, liquefied natural gas carriers, and specialized vessels for global customers. Eventually, South Korea became one of the world's largest shipbuilding nations. For many years, Korean shipyards competed successfully against rivals from Europe and Japan. The industry's success contributed significantly to exports and employment. Another area where Korean firms excelled was consumer electronics, televisions, home appliances, displays, mobile phones, and later smartphones. Companies invested heavily in innovation. They improved manufacturing efficiency. They built global distribution networks, and they developed strong international brands. Brand building was especially important. Creating a successful product is difficult. Creating a trusted global brand is even more difficult. Consumers often prefer familiar names. Building that trust can take decades. Korean companies invested billions of dollars in marketing and branding. As a result, many Korean brands became household names around the world. Another key factor behind Korea's corporate success was education. Technology-intensive industries require skilled workers, engineers, scientists, researchers, managers, and technicians. South Korea invested heavily in human capital. Universities expanded. Research institutions grew. Technical training improved. As educational attainment increased, companies gained access to a highly capable workforce. This workforce helped absorb foreign technologies, improve productivity, and generate innovation. Innovation itself became increasingly important. During the early stages of development, Korean firms often adopted technologies from abroad. They learned from advanced economies. They licensed technologies. They studied foreign competitors. However, over time, the strategy evolved. Rather than simply adopting existing technologies, Korean firms began developing their own. Research and development spending increased dramatically. Patent activity expanded. Innovation became central to corporate strategy. This transition from imitation to innovation represents one of the most significant achievements in Korea's economic history. Yet success did not eliminate challenges. Global competition remained intense. Japanese firms remained powerful competitors. American firms continued to dominate many technological sectors. European companies maintained strong positions in specialized industries, and eventually China emerged as a major challenger. China's rise changed the competitive landscape. Chinese firms benefited from enormous domestic markets, large labor forces, significant investment, and growing technological capabilities. Industries that Korean companies once dominated became increasingly competitive. In sectors such as smartphones, displays, batteries, shipbuilding, and electronics, Chinese firms expanded rapidly. These forced Korean companies to adapt once again. The challenge became clear. Competing primarily on cost was no longer enough. Korean firms needed to compete through innovation, technology, quality, and advanced manufacturing. These shifts pushed companies toward higher value activities: artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductors, electric vehicles, autonomous driving technologies, biotechnology, and next generation batteries. Today, many Korean firms are investing heavily in these emerging industries. Electric vehicles illustrate this transition particularly well. The global automotive industry is undergoing a historic transformation. Traditional internal combustion engines are gradually giving way to electric vehicles. Governments around the world are encouraging the shift. Consumers are increasingly interested in cleaner transportation, and technological advances continue to improve battery performance. Korean companies have become major players in the battery industry. Advanced batteries are a critical component of electric vehicles. The ability to produce high-quality batteries has become an important competitive advantage. Korean firms now supply batteries to manufacturers around the world. Artificial intelligence presents another major opportunity. AI systems require enormous computing power. They require advanced semiconductors. They require data centers, and they require specialized hardware. These requirements align closely with Korea's existing strengths. As AI adoption accelerates, demand for advanced memory chips continues to grow. This trend could provide significant opportunities for Korean technology companies. However, success is not guaranteed. Technology evolves rapidly, industries change, competitive advantages can disappear. Companies that dominate today may struggle tomorrow. History provides many examples. Once dominant firms sometimes fail to adapt to changing conditions. Korean companies understand this reality. Continuous innovation remains essential. Another challenge involves demographics. South Korea has one of the world's lowest birth rates. An aging population may reduce the size of the future workforce. Labor shortages could become more common. Economic growth may slow. Companies and policymakers must find ways to address these demographic pressures. Geopolitical risks also matter. Global supply chains have become increasingly complex. Trade tensions can disrupt markets. Conflicts can affect shipping routes. Technology restrictions can alter competitive dynamics. For an export-oriented country like South Korea, international stability remains extremely important. Environmental concerns represent another major challenge. Consumers increasingly demand sustainable products. Governments are introducing stricter environmental regulations. Investors are paying greater attention to sustainability. Companies must balance profitability with environmental responsibility. Despite these challenges, Korean firms continue to demonstrate remarkable resilience. They have adapted repeatedly over the past several decades. They survived oil shocks, financial crises, technological transitions, and changing global markets. This ability to adapt may be one of their greatest strengths. When people think about Korea's economic success, they often focus on products, smartphones, cars, televisions, ships, semiconductors. But behind these products lies a deeper story, a story about long-term investment, a story about education, a story about industrial strategy, a story about entrepreneurship, and a story about continuous adaptation. The rise of Korean companies was not inevitable. Many obstacles stood in the way: limited resources, poverty, political instability, foreign competition, technological challenges. Yet Korean firms gradually overcame these barriers. Through decades of effort, they built capabilities that allowed them to compete globally. Today, Korean companies influence industries across the world. They shape technological trends, they drive innovation, and they play critical roles in global supply chains. Their story remains one of the most remarkable examples of corporate and industrial transformation in modern economic history. As we look toward the future, the next chapter is still being written. Will Korean firms maintain their leadership in semiconductors? Can they dominate emerging industries such as artificial intelligence and advanced batteries? How will they respond to competition from China and other rising economies? And what new technologies will define the next generation of global competition? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the story of Korean companies is far from over. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Which Korean company do you think has had the greatest impact on the world? I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.